Germany has lost access to cheap Russian energy, while US tariffs are rising and American LNG is now dominating Europe's gas supply. German factories are struggling, costs are exploding, and industrial output is falling. At the same time, German companies are quietly pulling investment out of the United States. These pressures are stacking up, and together they are pushing Europe's largest economy toward a breaking point. Germany's energy problem is no longer temporary, and it is no longer theoretical. The numbers show how fast the structure has changed. In 2021, Russia supplied more than 150 billion cubic meters of natural gas to Europe. The United States supplied just 21 billion. That balance is now gone. Russian volumes collapsed to 37 billion cubic meters last year, while US LNG shipments surged, quadrupling to more than 80 billion cubic meters. This shift matters because LNG is not just another supplier. It arrives by ship, not pipeline. Contracts are shorter, prices are more volatile, and buyers have far less leverage. With Nord Stream out of commission, Europe lost its cheapest and most stable energy source. What replaced it is more expensive, more exposed to global swings, and concentrated in fewer hands. That concentration creates pricing power.
But I'm the one that stopped the pipeline. It's called Nord Stream 2. Until I came along, nobody ever heard, not one person in this room ever heard of Nord Stream 2. It's the biggest pipeline in the world. Going to go all over Europe, not only to Germany. You know, they're Germany, but then they were branching off all over to Europe. And then they say, I'm friends with Putin. I got along with him. He respected me, I respected him.
What matters is not the words themselves, but what followed. As US supply expanded, Europe's dependency deepened. Today, 57% of Europe's LNG imports come from the United States. If current trade arrangements are locked in, Washington could control up to 80% of Europe's LNG supply going forward. That level of dominance changes the balance completely. Prices no longer reflect pure market forces, and energy becomes a pressure point in wider negotiations. For Germany, this is especially dangerous. Energy is a core industrial input. Chemicals, cars, machinery, and advanced manufacturing all depend on reliable and affordable supply. When that foundation shifts, costs rise across the entire economy. And once cheap energy disappears, the damage does not stay contained. It spreads directly into production, margins, and competitiveness. The impact of this energy shock is now showing up clearly in Germany's real economy. Industrial production collapsed for the first time in August, marking a turning point after months of pressure. By December, output had dropped by nearly 2%, which is especially alarming given that this period usually benefits from seasonal demand. Instead of a rebound, the slowdown deepened. Manufacturing costs have become extremely difficult to manage. Energy prices feed directly into every stage of production, from raw materials to transport and final assembly. For industries like chemicals, machinery, and autos, even small cost increases can wipe out margins. Right now, those increases are anything but small. As a result, German producers are losing competitiveness both at home and abroad. This is one reason cars and electric vehicles are no longer moving off the shelves at the pace they once did. Higher production costs push prices up, while consumers are already under pressure from inflation and weaker growth. Demand weakens, inventories build, and factories are forced to slow output further. The cycle feeds on itself. At the same time, Germany faces a 20% tariff barrier from the United States. That makes exporting into one of its key markets more expensive and less predictable. The option to simply reverse course on energy policy does not exist. A return to Russian supply is politically blocked, and long-term infrastructure has already been dismantled. Germany's hands are tied. Some argue that military production could temporarily lift manufacturing numbers, but that does nothing to fix the underlying cost problem. It only masks it. Germany is stuck between rising input costs, shrinking demand, and limited policy flexibility. The pressure is building and the exits are narrowing fast. One argument often repeated in Washington is that tariffs force foreign companies to move production into the United States. The data from Germany shows the opposite. During Trump's first term, German investment in the US fell sharply. It dropped by 45%, sliding from 19 billion down to just 10 billion. Trade flows tell the same story. German exports to the United States fell by 8.6%. If tariffs were successfully pulling industry across the Atlantic, these numbers would be moving in the other direction. Instead, uncertainty froze decision-making. For large manufacturers, tariffs do not create clarity. They destroy it. Building a factory is not a short-term bet. It requires committing hundreds of millions, often billions of dollars over decades. Companies need confidence that trade rules will remain stable. That confidence does not exist. Tariffs can be imposed, expanded, paused, or reversed by a single administration. Court rulings add another layer of risk. A future president could undo everything again. No board signs off on that kind of exposure lightly. There is also a deeper problem. If German firms move production to the United States, the home economy pays the price. Jobs leave, supply chains weaken, industrial capacity erodes. For Berlin, that is not a viable trade-off. Germany cannot solve its problems by hollowing itself out. As a result, companies hesitate. They redirect capital elsewhere. Instead of reshoring to the US, German firms are choosing to sit on cash or look beyond America altogether. The intended pressure failed to produce the desired result. Tariffs did not pull investment in. They made the United States a harder place to commit long-term capital. Even if tariffs push companies to consider building inside the United States, production there does not solve the underlying problem. Costs inside the US are rising, not falling. The producer price index is up by 3%, meaning manufacturers are paying more for inputs before products even leave the factory. Tariffs amplify that pressure. Materials like steel have risen by 30% to 50% inside the United States itself. These are domestic prices, not imported ones. That cost structure matters because manufacturing is global. Companies do not build factories to serve only one market. They need to export. Higher input costs make US-based production less competitive the moment goods leave American borders. Even as interest rates begin to head down, inflation remains sticky. Tariffs push prices higher at the same time financing conditions stay tight. That combination squeezes margins from both sides. The auto sector shows this clearly. A German car maker producing in the US would be competing directly with Ford, GM, and Tesla, along with Japanese and Korean brands that already have scale and local supply chains. At the same time, the US auto market is shrinking, not expanding. That limits upside while competition intensifies. Volkswagen's experience captures the risk. The company halted its Audi factory plans in the United States, despite the promise of avoiding tariffs. Financial pressure played a key role. Volkswagen reported a $2.5 billion loss in the first 9 months of the year. Margins are under stress, and cash is limited. Building a new plant requires capital the company cannot easily risk right now. Some argue subsidies could close the gap, but that opens another problem. Subsidies raise the US deficit and quickly trigger demands from other industries. Once that door opens, it becomes politically difficult to close. For many companies, producing in the US starts to look like a long-term gamble, one that could turn into a sunk cost with no clear exit. While investment into the United States has been falling, German capital has been moving in the opposite direction. German foreign direct investment into China has risen to $8.3 billion, marking a 55% increase. This shift is happening at the same time that investment into the US is declining, which makes the direction of capital very clear. This move is often misunderstood. German companies are not investing in China to ship goods back into the United States. That model is no longer central. The real objective is access to future growth markets. The US remains a large consumer market today, but it will not dominate global demand forever. Other regions are growing faster, and companies are positioning themselves accordingly. The moment the tariff war began, globalization changed. Supply chains fragmented, costs rose, and long-term planning became harder. Instead of relying on one dominant consumer, companies started looking for flexibility and scale. China offers both. It provides deep industrial ecosystems, dense supplier networks, and the ability to produce large volumes at competitive cost. Political signals reinforce this shift. President Macron's visit to Beijing was not symbolic. European firms need continued access to Chinese supply chains to remain competitive globally. Logistics companies are adapting as well. DHL has already identified its future growth markets, naming Brazil and Mexico in the Western Hemisphere, and India, China, and Southeast Asia in the East. The United States did not make that list. Geography also matters. China sits at the center of Asian growth and remains the largest manufacturing hub in the region. For German firms producing advanced or high-volume goods, proximity to suppliers, skilled labor, and export routes is critical. That combination is difficult to replicate elsewhere. As a result, capital is flowing where production makes the most sense. And once investment decisions start shifting at this scale, they tend to create long-term commitments that are hard to reverse. As pressure builds across Germany's economy, another issue is moving quietly to the center of the debate: gold. Over the past 2 years, the price of gold has doubled. For Germany, that matters more than it might for other countries. The country holds nearly $600 billion in gold, a 19x increase in value since 1999. At current prices, those reserves could cover about 18% of Germany's total national debt. Germany holds the world's second largest official gold reserves. But there is a serious complication. More than $200 billion of that gold is stored outside the country. Only slightly over half is held in Frankfurt. Around 405 tons sit in London, while more than 200 tons are held in New York under US custody. On paper, Germany owns the gold. Physically, it does not control all of it. That distinction matters more today than it did in the past. The freezing of Russian assets showed how quickly access can be blocked. Venezuela's gold remains trapped in London. Trump has openly warned countries about consequences if they dump US Treasury bonds. Counterparty risk is no longer a theoretical concern. It is part of the system. Since Liberation Day, this risk has been shaping global behavior. Central banks around the world have become large net buyers of gold. Even as prices rise, they are selling less and accumulating more. This is a structural shift. Concerns over dollar weakness, along with the risk of treasuries being devalued or politicized, are pushing countries to rely more on assets they can control directly. Logistics add another layer of risk. The last time Germany moved gold back home, the process took between 2 and 4 years. Gold does not earn interest, and storage is not free. Custody fees can easily reach millions, or even tens of millions over time. In a crisis, delayed access defeats the purpose of holding reserves at all. This becomes even more sensitive as Germany prepares a $500 billion infrastructure fund to modernize its economy. From now until 2029, roughly $60 billion per year will be spent, excluding other industrial programs. Funding that plan means borrowing into a market already flooded by massive US bond issuance. Higher yields are a real risk. If conditions worsen, selling gold could become necessary. But selling requires access. Leaving a third of national reserves under foreign control creates a vulnerability Germany can no longer ignore. The choice is uncomfortable. Bring the gold home and strain relations with Washington, or leave it abroad and risk losing control when it matters most. Germany now faces choices that shape its future, not just its balance sheet. Will capital continue flowing east? Will Berlin demand its gold back from the US? And if it doesn't, what happens when the next crisis hits? Share your thoughts in the comments and don't forget to hit the like and share the video. See you in the next one.